Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I wanted to talk to you about the narcissist and karma. We're reaping what they sow, so let's jump in. So a lot of people out there don't believe or are under the impression the narcissist doesn't get their karma, their negative reaping. I promise you they do. They don't get their negative reaping or their karma in the same fashion of regular humanity. And that's because they are hybrids. When you shut off certain parts of your brain and your mind and you don't have certain emotions and things, then you look like humanity, but you don't operate anything like them. It's almost like, and that's why people will talk about that they seem a little bit like artificial intelligence, because they don't operate correctly. Like when you're in intercourse, a lot of people would say they look robotic. And that's because they look robotic because they're faking. Because anything that they can't naturally generate, they're going to have to fake. So what they do is they practice, like in movies and things, they will see acting and they will actually perform the same acts, you know, in private or in the mirror when they want to be you. They are trying to move like you. They will do these things behind the scenes when they're by themselves. They practice being like you. It's almost like they want to, in a weird way, fit in. They want to be special, which I kind of get, because it's kind of like if you gave yourself up to dark energy, you're gonna wish you didn't, but there's nothing you could do. So the dark energy, it love bombs them when it comes in when they're a little kid. And it gets them convinced that it's going to be a great opportunity that only comes once in a lifetime, and it's going to make them some superhero. But eventually over time, I think if they were to reflect on it, see, they don't reflect anyway. They just kind of live in each moment. But if they were, and when they do, when they are forced to, like when they have a complete collapse, they're forced to reflect to some degree, because they can't distract themselves, because there's no supply around. There's nobody to spend time with. Nobody wants to be with them. And this is when they do have some forms of regret or some forms of reflecting. And I think that they realize over time that they're not very special. And they're not very special because they're just like any other narcissist, because that's what they chose. They chose to not be independent and to have their own fingerprint, but they all share the same fingerprint of these demonic entities. So what they get is the creative form of the entity, which in a negative energy doesn't have creative form. The only creative form they have is the abyss. So they're going to have no ability to generate creativity except when it comes to like something like the dark web or some kind of criminal activity. Outside of that, they don't have creativity like we do. What they can do is they can read books, or they can learn things in school. They can go get a degree and learn how to do something, but to add to it or take away from it, to tweak it, to put your own smack on it, so to speak, they can't do that. They can maybe build something if they were taught how to build something. But when it comes to an issue or a problem or a situation, they're not very good about getting out of it. They're going to need help to be creative in finding the way out of whatever it is. If you're building a structure and there's a big old rock in the way, what are you going to do if you had to get around it because you can't dig it out? You know, you'd have to build around it. But I don't know if they would be able to do that, because they don't have the sense of creativity. And they don't create when it comes to new things, but they steal them. They steal things. They steal and patent them and do all kinds of things. And that's what a lot of the elites do, not all of them, but generally speaking, I would say a good bit of them. They steal ideas. They don't come up with them and create them, because that's what the enemy lost. That's what the fallen ones lost. But they are just dark energy. So what they do is, in regular humanity, we get our karma on a daily basis. And unless we refuse to get forgiveness for it or soften our heart, then it can build up. It can build up, because anytime that you have rebellion in your life and you refuse to deal with it, it can add a backup of karma to it, a reserve of karma. or negative reaping. And if you're damaging people on a daily basis and you're not dealing with it as well. And that's usually what rebellion leads to. But in the case of the narcissist, shut off parts of your brain, your mind, your heart, and you don't have certain emotions and things and you can't feel love. They need to switch energy with the most innocent type of individuals they can find. If you have two narcissists together, they're not going to do well at switching energy with each other because they're both about the same vibration level. So it's not going to help. But why they do it is they need energy because the dark energy cannot create fuel in them. And when they don't have certain emotions that they can feel and operate in and out of, like the 9 fruits and their true self, it's almost like their CPU is not processing the same way. It's like a dark processor now instead of whatever the original processor was that God gave them. So they can't generate fuel. And when you cannot generate emotions, you can't generate fuel and passions, not on a good level. They can on a negative level, like destruction. So what they need to gain fuel. And the other thing is they need to also get forgiveness for their sins, but they can't do that because they're not truthful. If you're not truthful, you can't genuinely ask for forgiveness, get repentance, or forgive yourself, other people. So, and they don't love themselves either, and they have zero. They put all these laws on you, but they don't have any boundaries for themselves. They are just run amok when it comes to sinful nature. So what they have to do is they're carrying all this sinful, unforgiven sin, I believe, is held in your emotional field, and they throw it on people, anybody that will accept it and switch energy with them. If they can't do it in private with a primary source of supply, they're going to do it with people out in public at, the Starbucks cashier. They're going to flip out on them and get them pissed off too, and they're going to have reactive abuse happen right in front of the register or something. So these are things that will happen, and that's why the narcissist does it. But they look for the most innocent fuel or naive fuel or people of goodness that are willing to switch energy with them. Somebody that's passionate and somebody that is reactive if they can find them. People with childhood injuries. An empath generally, because an empath is going to be sensitive to their feelings because, see, they're very easily injured. That's why they build a wall of flying monkeys around them and all this stuff. They have all these people that just agree with them all around them to protect them from the world. So if you don't agree with the narcissist, or if you're going to tell them the truth, so if you're going to tell them the truth or you don't agree with the narcissist, then they're not going to be with you. They're not going to be around you. But empaths that grew up in these families and were groomed for this stuff, they're used to falling trap and falling back through the nostalgia, back under that spell that they followed. This is unhealed empaths. Unhealed empaths, they're going to fall back into that trap of people pleasing and doing all those things like when they were groomed as a child. Because they didn't finish their healing, or they didn't even know they had healing that needed to be dealt with. Sometimes you can have unhealed wounds and not know what they are, and that could be a little tricky, but that's what meditation is for. So what they do is they flip the energy with people, and it cloaks them. It makes them look like humanity. It makes them look like humanity because they took your 9 fruits of your spirit and they gave you all their sinful energy. So now you have to repent for their sins. That's what you did, because you went into contract, covenant, and consent with them, so you agreed to it. Everything, whether you like it or not, is going to be something you consent to. If you lose $100,000 one night at some gambling casino and it wasn't a good idea and you wish you didn't do it, but you did it because you consented to it. So it's on you. We have to accept what we do. And when you consent to go into a relationship with them and you consent to accepting their negative energy through reactive abuse or guilt tripping or for whatever reason, giving them validation, all of that, just to get validation. These are things that we do when we're unhealed, and it gives them the ability to then walk in your shoes energetically. And the more energy and fuel they can take from you, and the more they can learn about you, and the more that they can practice your mannerisms, because they can't really operate like humanity. That's why they're robotic. A lot of times they look like artificial intelligence when you're having intercourse with them. If you look with a keen eye, you would find later on, like say when you were waking up, and then you'd hear it later that they're robotic. They kind of are, because they have to fake it. They have to fake everything. So what happens is they don't want to pay for their sins. The dark energy is always running from it, and that's what you're really dealing with, the dark energy inside of them. So what they do is they jump from one individual to the next, cloaking themselves in their energy and throwing off their sin on that individual that probably doesn't deserve it, but they accepted it. And either they're simple people and they don't know what they're doing, or they agree to be a toxic enabler, or they do know what they're doing, but regardless, they accept it. So they just keep throwing it on other people, and that's why they are never accountable as well. They can't be. They generally can't be. Those are the things that are missing in them. Because if you're a lie, you're not going to be accountable. You're going to always throw it on somebody else. So what they do is they keep cloaking themselves and throwing it on other people until at some point they don't have anybody to throw it on. And then all this karma hits them all at once. All the stuff that they threw on other people will come back at them in a big balloon full of it. It'll come back to them, hit them all at once, and it can put them down. It can make them sick. It can make them lose everything it generally does. And then they have to start over from square one a lot of times. And sometimes they can even pass away if it's bad enough, if they have enough built up negative reaping. What we deal with is negative reaping on a regular basis generally, and it helps you to grow spiritually and emotionally and psychologically on a daily basis. You know, you did something wrong, you know, you get negative reaping for it, you chisel out a better way of doing it, a more wholesome way, a more proper way, and you repent for it. But the narcissist, they get it like that, but instead they throw it on other people and cloak themselves in innocent energy. The better energy they can get, children's energy is the best energy because it's very innocent and it's pure, more pure. So that's why they like to have children, because they will flip energy with children a lot of times. It's the best energy. That's why you'll find a corrupt judge, but they won't look corrupt or seem corrupt. And it's because they could be flipping energy with children. And then they're wearing innocent children's energy and going to work and being a corrupt judge or a lawyer or whatever. And they don't even feel like it. Like they can pass some of the best tests. It's because they're wearing somebody else's energy. And generally, if it's children or naive individuals or wholesome people, then that's what they will look like. And that's what they look like in the spirit realm. When you accept their energy, you get nailed with all of their negative reaping because you look like them in the spirit. They're camouflaging. They're trying to avoid karma completely, and a lot of times they think they can until it nails them all at once. And then they're like, oh, why is this happening? You know? But that's because you are trying to abuse the laws that God put into the foundations of the world, and you can't. So eventually it will nail you. And what will also happen is God will sometimes allow that stuff to build up, and it's almost like God only gives you the fair negative reaping that you deserve. So let's say if somebody's going to do something harmful to you, to get them blocked so that they won't have a pathway to do it when they least expect it, God may store up all their negative reaping and nail them with it then. So then it would be, this is something God will strategically do sometimes in the anticipation that, you know, he knows all. So being outside of time, he knows, like, say in 3 weeks, they're going to try to hurt you really bad. So he might let their karma build up, and then that day, out of your protection, because you're doing righteous things, but he can't just put negative reaping on them for no reason. He'll nail them with it then. And then they will be blocked from even coming to you because something bad will happen to them. And then they will get the negative reaping for what they were going to do to you as well. So these are things that God will use negative reaping to strategically nail them at times to protect you. And sometimes he will hit you with it to stop you, to protect you as well from moving on to something you think is going to be greater, greener pastures, and it may not be. So he could hit you with a lot of backed up negative reaping. So sometimes these things will happen like that because God's a just God and he's equal scales. But that's what happens. And a lot of times they can cloak themselves for years and years and years, maybe 3 or 4 years without getting any negative reaping, sometimes longer, sometimes long time. But when it does hit them, it will destroy them and wreck them. And everybody will see them for who they are and what they thought they were and how great they thought they were as a person. Not at all. It's just a lie. And they will be ruined for life. And they, a lot of times, will never be able to reach whatever or supersede whatever level they were at before, especially if they did it for 10 years or something, 10, 20 years. They'll usually not be able to get back there because now they're out of looks. And when they go down with this negative reaping, it's going to nail every area of their life, including their looks. So that's kind of a little bit about karma and negative reaping. So give me a like. Thank you for watching. Like. Till next time, Soul Job. Peace be out.